What's up everyone, Zero here. Last Epoch is coming out with their Cycle 1.1 on July 9th, and it's shaping up to be a banger. If you guys have not tried this game yet, you gotta try it. This game is a ton of fun. They are doing changes to the factions, so now it's not gonna be this super long grind to get to the max level. They're adding a new faction for the end game bosses. They're making a ton of balance changes. It's going to open up a lot of new builds. I'm very, very excited for it. And if you haven't tried it yet, you got to give it a shot. The whole purpose of this video is just to go over some cycle start builds that you can use to get yourself to the end game if you're choosing the mastery that I'm going to go over. I'm going to go over the Runemaster, the Falconer, and the Paladin. One of these builds is my own creation that I did not follow any kind of guide or take a base from. The other two are from Mitch and Perry the Pig, so shout out to those guys. I will also link their YouTubes and their build YouTube videos in the description below, along with all the build planners for these builds. So rather than doing a deep dive on every single one of them, I just wanted to do a brief overview of the skills, the interactions, and then show you a little bit of the gameplay so you can see if maybe this is something that interests you. But the full build guide videos and the build planners will be in the description below. Hope you guys enjoy it. Let's get into it. So the first build I want to go over is the explosive trap Ballista Falconer. This is one of the meta builds from last cycle, and it's going to be a great league starter. They did do some nerfs to dive bomb, which it needed, but it's still going to be a great cycle starter. This was a very, very smooth leveling experience. So what this does is it uses the exploding ballista, and then it uses explosive trap to proc the ballistas. So you're just throwing out explosive traps. That's going to bring up the ballistas. They're going to explode. Then you also have your falconry and your dive bomb for some extra damage. It uses shift as a movement skill. And then I have another variant for this, but just to show you the gameplay. So the gameplay is real smooth. You just throw your ballistas out, everything just dies. You dive bomb on the big single target stuff. It's not the tankiest. However, it's got a lot of mobility, so it's pretty easy to master. The other variant that I have with the Umbral Blades has a little bit more mobility than this, so it ends up being a little bit better, but it works really well. The only thing about this build is it's a bit of delayed damage. So you're just throwing your traps out there and then waiting for the ballista to explode. It's not too bad though. Definitely doable. The build's a lot of fun, and it also lowers your cooldowns too for your dive bomb and your falconer. So every time you hit with the trap, it's going to lower the cooldown for your falconry and your dive bomb. This was by far one of my favorite builds this last cycle, and I think it's still going to be a banger even with the nerfs to the damage. So this build is the build that I made the variant of. So this is actually something that I came up with, but it's very, very simple. It uses aerial assault to throw umbral blades. So every time you do your aerial assault, it's going to proc the umbral blades. They're going to drop for you and spin towards the enemies. It also uses dive bomb just for that single target, and then we have the umbral blades. So this uses umbral blades and blade storms. So this way, when your umbral blades proc, they are going to spin towards the enemies. And then I am using the chakram shurikens. Also using falconry for additional damage on single target. What this build uses is Lyraka's claws. So this is going to give you your throwing damage and the extra projectiles with the shurikens. It's going to use the fulgurite shard. This is going to be the conversion to lightning for the shurikens. It's also going to give you some extra lightning penetration as well. You can dual wield those and do a lot more damage, or I have the Cradle of the Erased on here for some extra block, just a little bit extra tankiness. And then other than that, you just really want to focus on levels to dive bomb, levels to shurikens. Increased health obviously gets your resistances up, gets your throwing attack speed for sure. That's going to help a lot. As you can see, I have the umbral blades, dive bomb, and shurikens on my gear, but this build is a ton of fun. The extra shred armor, the extra conversion on the idols for the lightning damage to make up for not dual wielding these helps a lot. And I'll make a detailed build planner and put it in the description for you guys, that way you can see it. I just want to go over just the base of it so you can see kind of how it works, and maybe if you like the play style, you want to play it. And just to show you how the gameplay is on this. So this does have a lot more mobility. It's a lot faster of a build. It also uses net just as another source of crowd control, but as you can see, it definitely just runs through everything. This did not get a nerf as far as I can understand from the patch notes. So I'm sure that this is still going to be a very viable build in the coming up cycle. This is very, very smooth. Once you get the chakrams unlocked in the skill tree, it's unbelievable. It does a ton of damage, single target and everything. So, and then the good thing too is, or whenever you hit with a throwing skill, it's going to lower the cooldown of your dive bomb and your falconry. So you just jump in and hit them. This is also a very smooth start, great for leveling. It's great to get you all the way to the end game to monoliths. Lots of mobility, lots of crowd control, lots of defense. The next build is the FrostClaw Elemental Nova Runemaster. I believe it got a little bit of a nerf in the patch notes, but not too much. I know that the ward stacking got a big nerf. What they're doing now, just in case you haven't seen the patch notes, is if you get over a certain amount of ward, it's going to decay very, very fast. And once you get under a certain amount, it's going to start to decay slower. So this is going to stop the builds that are generating hundreds of thousands of ward. So it's going to keep you at a reasonable level so that you're not invincible. So what this build does is it uses FrostClaw to proc Elemental Nova with the Celestial Conflux. I don't have the item that has +4 to FrostClaw, which is what I need, where I would grab the 2 nodes here that make FrostClaw attack in front of you and behind it. So that would be a bunch of extra Elemental Novas. So that's where the build really takes off. But I will post the original build planner in the description below, so that way you can see. It uses Flame Rush for mobility, and then it uses Runic Invocation to cast the armor spell to give you the extra ward and a little bit extra tankiness. It also uses Flame Ward to get as another source of ward. With the new ward nerfs, I'm not sure how well it's going to work, obviously, because we haven't tested it yet. We can only tell by the numbers, but this build should be very viable still. It does a lot of damage, a ton of single target. A lot of people were pushing this up to 1500 corruption. So I know that they're changing the way that corruption works too. So hopefully you'll still be able to push pretty high with this, but this is an amazing starter build. So this will get you well into monoliths. And then if you really want to, you can spec into something else, because the Runemaster has a ton of different builds. And now that they changed the disintegrate skill tree, so that's going to open up a lot of builds with that possibly. So hopefully we will be able to see some cool stuff with that skill. So just to show you just how it works, you're just using the FrostClaw to proc the Elemental Novas, and it just melts things. It's really cool. Once you get up to the end game, I mean, this build is so powerful, but it's really, really good to go through the campaign and get you guys started. I will also post a link to the YouTube video for the variant on this build that I'm using, because there's a lot of different variants, but this one's by far the strongest one that I tried. So this is the Divine Bolt Paladin that uses Healing Hands. Healing Hands got a pretty big nerf because of the amount of ward generation that you're able to do, and now the healing's changed on it a little bit. So I'm not too sure how viable this will be pushing into the end game and high corruption, but this will be a great starter build for the cycle if you want to go Paladin. And then you're obviously able to spec into other stuff, but what this does is it uses a bunch of different buffs to gain extra damage with Healing Hands, and then you're using this right here to cast Divine Bolts. So every time you directly cast the healing, it's going to fire the Divine Bolts out. And then on the passive skill tree, you have this node right here, which Divine Bolt fires extra projectiles. And then it's also got a source of Ignite. It's also got some self-ignite, which is to increase the damage, but this build is almost unkillable as it stands right now, so it really needed a nerf. Just to show you the gameplay and how this looks, you're just using the buff of Sigil Hope and Holy Aura. You're using Volatile Reversal to get the extra movement and cast speed. It's also using Javelin for a buff and for the movement, because it uses the Capture the Flag node. But if you want to go Paladin, this will still probably be a really good bet. The Divine Bolts do not proc unless you're directly healing yourself. So you have to get either the Experimental Affix that makes you lose life and gain ward, or you get the chest piece that does the same thing. But this build is insanely powerful going through the campaign and leveling. I was able to complete all the dungeons and rush through very, very low level. As soon as you get the divine bolts on board, it just blasts through everything. So that's it, guys. Those are my top 4 choices for the cycle start. All of those builds will get you to the end game, and if you want to choose that mastery, you can spec into whatever you want from there. Last Epoch has an amazing respec ability to where you can just despecialize a skill, pick new ones, and then run a couple monoliths, and then you're right back up to almost max level. If you have not tried this game yet, please give it a shot. Also, if you like my videos and they help you at all, please consider subscribing. That really helps me out a lot. Also, leave me any feedback that you might have. And that's it. Please stay tuned. There's a lot more content to come for Last Epoch Cycle 1.1, and then I will be covering PoE 3.25 as well. So stay tuned for that. See you guys next time. Peace.